In a quiet smithy, the only sound was the rhythmic clang of a hammer striking glowing metal. Sam, a young apprentice, stood at the anvil, sweat dripping down his face. His movements were desperate, hurried. Each strike felt heavier than the last, and yet the metal stubbornly refused to take shape. Then a loud crack rang out. The metal shattered, splintering into jagged pieces. Sam's heart sank. He stood frozen, staring at the broken shards, his breath shallow, his thoughts swirling in frustration. In that moment, Sam felt like his dream of becoming a master blacksmith was slipping through his fingers. Little did he know, everything was about to change. All it took was one simple shift in perspective. Sam slumped against a workbench, hammer still gripped in his hand. The smithy felt heavier now, the air thick with his self-doubt. The workbench around him, cluttered with tools, seemed to mock his struggle. He glanced at them, tools that represented years of skill and achievement. But to Sam, they felt out of reach. His shoulders sagged, and the weight of failure pressed down on him like the hammer he held. "Why can't I get it right?" he muttered, almost to himself. "I've tried everything, and nothing works. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." His eyes scanned the rough edges of the unfinished metal, and his hand trembled as he reached for the hammer once more. The same hammer that had failed him over and over felt impossibly heavy now. Sam had been at the forge for hours, yet no matter how many times he struck the metal, it always bent the wrong way, shattered, or refused to cooperate. He was tired, defeated, and in his frustration, he began to believe the lie that his failure defined him. From the corner of the smithy, a figure appeared, Master Orin, the seasoned blacksmith whose hands had shaped countless blades over the years. He had seen the frustration in Sam's eyes before. This was a moment Sam had to face on his own, but he wasn't alone. Master Orin knew the journey all too well. Without a word, Master Orin crossed the room, his footsteps steady and calm. He stopped beside Sam, looking at the shattered metal on the ground. Master Orin knew that this moment wasn't about fixing Sam's mistake. It was about helping him see beyond it. Instead of offering the usual advice, Orin remained silent, letting the quiet settle in. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. "Do you feel the weight of the hammer, Sam?" Sam looked up, puzzled. "Of course I do," he said, his frustration creeping into his voice. "It's just, no matter how hard I try, it always breaks. I can't seem to get it right." Master Orin didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up a rough, unfinished piece of metal from the workbench, its edges jagged and uneven, and held it out to Sam. "This was the first blade I ever forged," Orin said quietly. "It's far from perfect. In fact, it barely looks like a blade at all. But I learned something important when I made it." Sam raised an eyebrow, curiosity breaking through his skepticism. Master Orin's eyes sparkled with quiet wisdom as he continued. What he was about to share would change Sam's perspective forever. "Perfection, Sam, is a myth. It doesn't exist. But progress is real. Every mistake, every failed attempt teaches you something new. And that's how you grow. Not by getting it perfect, but by shaping yourself with every strike, no matter how small." Sam looked at the rough metal in his hands. It was so different from what he'd been striving to create, but something in Orin's words stirred him. He had been chasing perfection, expecting it to appear in one perfect moment. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about that at all. Progress, Sam, that's the true forge. It's the little steps, the constant shaping that makes you a master. Not the perfect strike, but the continuous journey. Sam's hands tightened around the hammer once more. This time, he didn't feel the weight of failure. Instead, he felt the weight of possibility. He raised the hammer and struck the metal, not with frustration, but with focus. Slow, deliberate. Each strike was a step, not toward perfection, but toward something far more valuable. Progress. The sound of the hammer was no longer harsh, but rhythmic, a steady, controlled beat that matched Sam's heartbeat. He worked with purpose, with patience. The metal began to take shape, not perfectly, but it was no longer a collection of mistakes. It was a creation forged with intent. Time passed, and with each strike, Sam's confidence grew. The work was far from finished, but it was real, and it was his. In that moment, Sam realized something crucial. Perfection would always remain out of reach, but progress was something he could control. It was something he could shape, one step at a time, one strike at a time. As Sam stepped back to admire his work, Master Orin stood behind him, watching with quiet pride. The metal still had rough edges, but it had taken form. And for the first time, Sam felt proud, not of perfection, but of the journey he had taken. Sam had learned what so many of us forget. It's not perfection that matters. It's progress. It's the willingness to keep going, to keep shaping, even when the results don't look perfect. Sam turned to Master Orin, his voice filled with newfound confidence. I understand now. It wasn't about perfection. It was about trusting the process, taking it one step at a time. Master Orin nodded, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. Exactly, Sam. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep moving forward. Progress is what shapes you, and it's what shapes everything. As Sam turned back to his work, the smithy felt different. The forge was no longer a place of pressure. It was a place of growth, one strike at a time. In life, as in the forge, perfection is a ghost. But progress is real. And with each step, no matter how small, you are shaping the life you want to live. If this lesson resonated with you, remember, don't chase perfection. Focus on progress. Subscribe and start applying this lesson today. One small step at a time,